You are listening to Dr. J Radio Live.
What all that was about, if you go back and look at whatever videos out there now of that landing, that when the LEM suddenly moved in a kind of a jerky way and there was a lot of dust, that it was because Neil Armstrong and the other guys saw 3 silver discs lined up over a crater that would have been seen by the camera, and they communicated with NASA that there were 3 things there, and NASA said, turn the LEM, and they landed in that chaos because there were 3 silver discs parked in the air over a nearby crater.
And there's actually some great NASA footage, though some people believe was hoax, but it appeared in this very famous documentary from the early 90s, UFOs Above and Beyond, where it actually showed these giant objects parked literally right by a crater, one of the several craters on the moon. Now, here's the anomaly that I never understood.
Can we just ask a question here for the audience and pose it? I've seen the same photos, and what I have wondered, are they created in some kind of a Photoshop for people to put up at websites to get clicks to make money? So many people are doing that. I think it's unethical. But people are doing that. And so it makes it so hard for those of us who are trying very hard to understand what the facts are. The story, I completely believe from the pilot. But I don't think that any of those real photos have been leaked, have they? Wouldn't these be something Photoshop based on hearing stories like what I just told you?
Why is it that Buzz Aldrin does a lot more talking? As a matter of fact, he appeared in a very famous movie, a very fictional movie, Transformers of all that. I mean, that was a child's toy. I remember that one in the early 80s. It was very popular, that and I think Tron or Voltron or something like that. But regardless, Transformers, he appeared in it, and with a very straight face in I think it was the second part or the third part. I don't remember which of this part of the series, because there have been so many at this point. He actually came in the movie and said that when him and Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, that they encountered an unknown species, an extraterrestrial species. Now, again, this was in a movie. Why would they allow him to say such a thing? I mean, wouldn't it discredit NASA?
Well, see, I don't know. What I just told you was from a pilot. He would be then firsthand, right, to the story. He was there with Neil Armstrong as a buddy in Neil Armstrong's house. So that's what you call first-hand testimony. He was one of 2 people, and he's describing. And you really, to make a strong, credible story, you usually need everybody that's involved. You want to go on the record, but we never could get Neil Armstrong, which sort of reinforced what the pilot said. Now, when you jump to somebody saying that they heard about X occurring, then you're removed from the first hand. And that's why this, right now, the web and the internet, it is so filled with what I call chaff. It's in all of us every day now who are interested in actual facts and news. One of our biggest challenges is separating out what is real and what is not real, because you got all these people that want to just put a headline up. They don't really care what, just so people will click on their website. Even if people are disgusted after they click on the website, then that person is adding up those clicks for money. And we need to be in a more ethical world where facts are given some respect, and that we really know that we're going to legitimate news. Well, that's why, in my case, I have a very short list. Anything that comes up that appears to be over the top, I always check with what the Guardian is reporting, what the BBC is reporting, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and a couple of others, and then have my own military and intel sources to get in touch with on cases that might be controversial in that area, because you can't trust the web anymore.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's actually a double-edged sword. On one hand, you have this free flow of information where anybody can be a movie producer via YouTube. They, for every minute watched, I was told by a YouTube advisor that there are 300 minutes or 300 hours uploaded. That is just an astronomical number. And 20, 30, I'd say 30 years ago, before people had the ability to create blogs and to create stories or to create websites that glorify stories that are chaff, the way you put it, that's where the double-edged sword comes from. So on one hand, we have the free flow of information. On the other hand, forgive me for saying this, we have the crap that comes in that really, really just muddies the water for us trying to get to the sources.
And I'll give you another part of the internet world today that is so unfair, and that is, I know how hard that I work on trying to understand and report in difficult subject areas such as the alien presence as it has been described by various people, politically, military, and intel on this planet, and all of the ramifications that fall out from those two words, alien presence. And that ranges from technologies, back engineering, what types, to what end, what agendas, who's friendly, who's not, how deep are the cover-ups, how deep are the layers of the games that are being played. And then I will, out of lots and lots of interviews and reading and research and in the field, there are certain things that begin to crystallize in my own mind as being a reality that is not really in the radar of the planet. That doesn't mean that it's not a reality, because when you get into the whole world of whistleblowers and people in human abduction syndrome, a person who is in an investigative role as I am, you hear the largest bell-shaped curve of everything possible. And I try to report only what I feel like I have some credible context for. And I think one of the most important subjects that we all need to understand more about in order to understand whatever the alien presence is, has to do with the what I call alien self-activating software. And that ties to the 2007 whistleblower Isaac and the Dragonfly drones and the diagrams that are the mathematical basis for self-activating software that do not need organic intelligences in craft or the technology, that they are made to be self-activating, can move through the universe, can be on Earth, and we'll call it the prime intelligence doesn't have to be with it. I am convinced this is one of the most important facets, and it relates to symbols, being able to touch symbols that provoke the self-activating software to respond. And these are all of those descriptions going back to the 50s and the 60s in the 20th century, when people said the craft seemed to be alive. It acted as if it were a conscious, sentient being. Those were many descriptions going back to those far decades, and nobody had any context for understanding. Today, the alien self-activating software explains how you could have an entire craft. Whatever the substrate is made of, you've got molecular programming, and that it is dense and can produce three-dimensional holograms, neutralize gravity, can make the craft or the beings, if there are beings, and they're not necessary, make the craft invisible. Those would all be functions of a self-activating software created by very, very sophisticated intelligences to have technologies that could interact with and harvest genetic material from planets, not just Earth, and basically not have to interface with Earth life unless they wanted to, because they're largely invisible and they can neutralize gravity. Now, that to me is a story that is worth sharing with the public, hoping for more whistleblowers. Yet every time that I bring something to bear about that, like the recent case that has come out of what is called Wadley, Georgia, I think it's a substantial case. But you just feel like that there are counterintelligence operatives out there just waiting to slam the heck out of me and anyone who treads into this subject matter that they do not want reported. And I think all of us need to understand that we already, in the United States, that we have back-engineered technology from extraterrestrial retrievals that are probably shockingly advanced, and that we should be learning about it, and that when people hear that there's laughter about the seriousness of some of these subjects, that laughter automatically reveals the people who are throwing stones to either be getting a check from counterintelligence to do that, or the people have absolutely no knowledge.
You've said some amazing stuff. I want to comment on a few and ask a few questions. I just want to give you a heads up. We got about a little over 15 minutes before our first break. First of all, there's two amazing books that you've turned me on to about the alien presence. One of them being Rachel's Eyes. I believe Helen Luttrell was the author, which just blew my mind away to know that there were programs where they were trying to take either a hybrid or it was maybe a full-on ET and mix it in with humans in a college, wearing a floppy hat, sunglasses, and all this other stuff. Like she had no bones, I remember. And the other book, UFO Highway by Anthony Sanchez. Right. Those two books, I think, knocked me off my socks and blew me out of the water with regards to what I thought I knew. I mean, it seems like the more we go down the rabbit hole, the bigger. Now, with regards to the self-activating software, we did a really fascinating interview about this about a year ago. So if a lot of people want to hear it, you could check it out on the YouTube channel. Again, it's just the same name as this, Dr. J Radio Live. But you talked about this actually going all the way up to Stanford. And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't the organization called Carrot that was involved in some of this?
This is the whistleblower from 2007, and he called himself Isaac, and it started in May of 2007, and Lex at Coast to Coast AM Radio and Linda Howe at Earth Files, we both received communications about people beginning to have photographs of these strange, and we called them Dragonfly drone because they had a larger, from the eye, seeing them in the air, it was like a larger head. I'm not saying it's literal to a dragonfly. It's just that dragonflies have the proportion of these aerial objects. So there is a discernible circle in the front of these objects. Wires come up from the circle, which seem to be involved with some sort of electrostatic interaction. Then coming from the ring, front ring and circle, is a long tapering tail. These have been estimated on the average of 25 feet long. And underneath, panels, boxes, various attachments to the front ring that has all the wires coming up into the air above it, and this tapering tail. Several people in 2007 were able to photograph close enough that we could see that there were patterns of symbols under some of the tails and on some of what are called boxes in one particular series of 12 photographs that were sent to me hard mail as glossy photos, and they were taken at Big Basin Redwood Park in California, and this was in June of 2007. And the man who sent me the 12 prints his name was Ty Brannigan. He said in a typed letter that he was with other bicyclers, and they were in a group bicycling at Big Basin, and this dragonfly drone-looking thing in the sky flickered in to visibility and flickered out of visibility, in and out, in and out. The first time they saw it, startling them, making them wonder what it was. It happened 3 times. It would flicker in and flicker out. And he wrote me, I was so frustrated, I wanted to photograph this. And he said, I took my camera out of a pocket and I hung the strap around my right wrist, hoping that this thing would come back and I'd still be able to get a photo. And it did, and he was able to get 12 photos before it flickered back out into invisibility. And he said that the whole time that the 12 that he's trying to photograph, this Dragonfly drone would rotate clockwise and then reverse counterclockwise and then clockwise and counterclockwise as it was hovering and slowly moving in a motion where they were on a path, and he got those 12 photos. And on the basis of those 12 photos and the symbols that were underneath, they were on the boxes and underneath the tail, I put up all of the photographs at earthfiles.com. I shared the private emails that I was having one-on-one with Isaac, and I put up, as he requested, Lex at Coast and me and anyone who wanted to deal with the documents that he released, that no one would be able to change a word, change a diagram, change an image, if any of us did anything to alter the 2 documents that he was releasing in the photographs. He would take down his site and we would never have any interaction again. So I've never touched. At Earth Files to this day, part 1 and part 2 of an entire document with photos of extraterrestrial technology at the CARET lab in Palo Alto. CARET is an acronym for Commercial Application Research of Extraterrestrial Technology. The goal, it was a Department of Defense program in which they were trying to work with 200 scientists in an underground facility in Palo Alto. After I had done all this reporting that I'm telling you about, it went on for months, and I ended up with something like 21 eyewitnesses to these Dragonfly drones, going back as far as the 1988 to 89 time period at an Air Force base in Louisiana. There was a widespread of eyewitnesses. But as this went forward, and I am getting communication in addition to what Isaac was releasing, a man who identified himself as working for a large corporation in Palo Alto said, I am trusting that you will not ever share my email, my name. I just want you to know. He said, I have studied everything that you have reported from Isaac about CARET and your own other investigations and reports about other eyewitnesses. And he said, I want you to know the CARET document is real. The lab, I know for a fact, is underground, and in the 80s, if you had been in Palo Alto and you knew what to look for, you would have thought you were passing a library with trees.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's...
Yeah, the installation of all the labs and the DOD and the security with all their guns and all the scientists trying to back-engineer this ET technology that is self-activating was underground.